in terms of engineering molecules, I kind of have two facets, I guess, to my lab: fundamental research and applied research. So the fundamental stuff is understanding how biological molecules work. So in terms of biological molecules, the type of molecules I work with are proteins and lipids. Those are two of the main types of biological molecules you see and everything. Other things being like DNA and things like that. But my focus is on proteins and lipids. So some of the fundamental stuff I work with is looking at the protein involved in Parkinson's disease.
Oh,
So understanding how changes in the way it behaves with lipids and its structure, how that causes it to aggregate and disrupt neurotransmission and other processes in brain cells. So that all can be better understood through looking at fundamentally what's it doing, how is it changing, and how are things in the environment changing its propensity to go from this single protein state to an aggregated state. So that's some of the fundamental stuff we have going on. Some of the applied stuff now, we look at how we can make things like functional lipid nanoparticles. So I guess lipid nanoparticles have become kind of a hot topic the last 5 years or so due to the um, COVID vaccines that just
COVID.
came out with the mRNA in there, the new way to give vaccines, right, with these lipid nanoparticles. So the lipids and lipid nanoparticles are the same types of lipids that make up the lipids in our body that surround our cells and things like that. So using biologically inspired materials to make things that can deliver payloads to cells. So your cells, you might remember from basic biology, your cell has a plasma membrane around it. It's a semi-permeable membrane that doesn't let things into it easily. So you have to kind of trick the cell into letting things in there so we can make all kinds of fancy modifications to molecules that can kind of get their way into cells.
Awesome. And is it your main focus or just one of the focuses on actually going towards Parkinson's, like actually focusing on that particular disease?
Oh no, so those are two
Two
different
two
areas I
different
was
things.
talking
Two
about.
different, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the Parkinson's is a more fundamental side.
Got it. Sorry.
We haven't explicitly worked on anything for treating Parkinson's, just for understanding it. But the applied side is more. I mean, there could be some overlap there, right?
There
Now,
might be. Yeah.
like you can make like we are doing some potential work with not with a different neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, which has these tau beta um, plaques that form. I have one student working on one potential project that kind of bridges those two areas in my lab for looking at how you can break down these type of aggregates that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. But that's kind of in the very nascent stages right now. So
Wow.
that's one area where there could be a possible convergence of these two kind of areas we work in. But at the present, yeah, we kind of focus on those two areas
We
independently.
get that's that's fantastic work. It's awesome stuff to hear. I think that sometimes a, a non-technical audience or even just someone, trying to come into this world of I'm fascinated by math, I'm fascinated by science, I'm fascinated by how these things are going to come together in health and well-being. I think from a high school perspective, I think sometimes it's confusing to know which is the way to go, right? And I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but when someone's looking at this, they could say like, should I study a science? Should I study math? Should I study an engineering? And then if so, what engineering? I got chemical engineering. I hear there's biomedical engineering. What you just described, as you said, is on the biological side of things, but you're a chemical engineering faculty
Right.
member. Obviously, there's overlap, and that makes sense. But is there a way to direct a student? In what's the right major for them? Of course, chemical engineering is the right answer, but as how do we find the right path for each student?
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult um thing to I mean, I think the answer to that's very difficult. Yeah, but just because you get to the point and you realize that everything is interdisciplinary, right? Like I have people that work in my field that are in chemical engineering departments, that are in biomedical engineering departments, that are in mechanical engineering departments, that are in civil
Interesting,
engineering departments.
interesting.
So like yeah, you could like everything overlaps to some degree. Like wait, let's say there was a joke from one of those, I forget those like it wasn't PhD comics, but like one of those types of comics
Oh yeah, yeah.
that, that showed like increasing line of like peer study, and it was like, oh, here's the sociologist, and like the psychologist is like, well, that's just applied psychology, and the biologist is like, well, that's just applied biology, and the chemist is like, well, uh, biology, that's just applied chemistry. And then the physicist was like, well, chemistry, that's just applied physics. And the mathematician is way down and was like, what are you guys talking about over there? So like,
It all comes
everything,
together.
yeah, it all comes together. So as long as I feel like as long as you're really passionate about something, you can to some degree make it work no matter where you go, no matter what you choose as your major. But obviously, different majors might give you more broad kind of, I guess, opportunities. So like to me, chemical engineering is really broad in terms of what you can do. So
Hmm.
no, that's my bias that chemical engineering is probably the broadest one that has the most kind of branching overlap with all everything else.